American military contractor General Dynamics has received a loan for $650 million from the Canadian federal government after Saudi Arabia has fallen behind on their payments on an arms deal contracted through Canada. According to Global Affairs Canada statistics, Saudi Arabia was Canada's largest non-U.S. destination for military exports in 2018, receiving approximately $1.2 billion in Canadian product. General Dynamics has also, on the same day as receiving the loan, taken an order for 360 LAVs light armored vehicles or LAVs from the Canadian government. These have an expected delivery date of 2021. While the deal has been very controversial, the vehicles are being made in Canada by Canadians. There is some merit to that. But why are we exporting military vehicles that has been directly involved in a genocide in Yemen, has tortured and murdered journalists, and still has strict limits on women's rights? Money, greed, and globalism. Despite my opinions on selling weapons to a nation like Saudi Arabia, there has to be questions asked of the federal government as to why we continue to do this. This has the feel of the SNC-Lavalin scandal all over again. We have to keep the business to protect Canadian jobs. It's not our responsibility what happens after we deliver our products to market. This argument may fly if we're talking about commercial goods or even other types of government contracts. See SNC-Lavalin. But we should be concerned with who we are as a nation are selling weapons to and how they are using them. If they want our exports, they need to have values that are in line with the Canadian government backing. Before I continue, if you like my videos, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell for new content every day. And my links to my social media will be in the description. So let's just take a look at the main article that prompted this one for me. Saudi Arabia is $3.4 billion behind on its payments for the Canadian LAVs. This was produced yesterday by CBC. Levin wrote this one. And, okay, if we're going to be selling weapons and vehicles used in military conflict to a country like Saudi Arabia, at the very least, they really need to be paying on time. I hate the idea that we're selling to Saudi, but, I understand that it's a $14 billion contract. Like, I understand that is very important for certain communities, London, Ontario. Like, I understand that that's a huge deal. However, in the same scheme of things, we also just signed the Arms Trade Treaty. And, a group of arms control and human rights experts welcome Canada's accession to the ATT, but reminds the government that such an act should require the cancellation of arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Exactly. How the hell are we still selling these people weapons? Exporting arms to such a recipient is patently incompatible with the ATT, which recognizes that poor regulation of conventional weapons transfers has caused immeasurable death and destruction around the world. To achieve a core purpose of reducing human suffering, the ATT was a common global standards for national control of shipments of conventional weapons across international borders. Like, Saudi Arabia is currently in their 5th year of armed conflict, and Yemen is now on the brink of famine. And I think that these folks that wrote this article on opencanada.org made a very good point. In perhaps the most important example, Canada's foreign minister is now obliged to review the risks that weapon transfers have used to commit or facilitate serious violations of international humanitarian law, human rights, and gender violence, as well as the risk to international or regional peace and security. If risks are deemed substantial, the minister is legally bound to deny the transfers. I think it's pretty freaking clear that all of these international humanitarian law, human rights, and gender violence have easily been violated. Oh my goodness, where's this at? I wanted to find... We are well aware of each argument made by Ottawa to to maintain these exports. There may be penalties for breaking contracts. Saudi Arabia promotes regional peace and stability. There has been no conclusive evidence of misuse. If Canadian companies don't arm the Saudis, someone else will. And I'm not persuaded either. These folks right here, thank you. This is an important note and again, might be one of those situations. This is just going to be a backstory. Nobody's going to, people are going to worry again if, Saudi Arabia murders another journalist in their embassy. But until then, this is just going to hide behind the surface again. And I think that there's one person specifically responsible for these atrocities that is not Saudi, that is not Canadian. Phoebe Novakovic. She is the CEO of General Dynamics, the arms dealer who is selling weapons to Saudi Arabia with the express determination to eliminate Yemen from the map, to eliminate these civilians. And I don't know how you can even. Forbes has her as the top 20, as the 25th most powerful person in the world. I don't care. Let's talk about this. There was a diplomatic crisis. The Saudi Arabia kicked out every Canadian bureaucrat and ambassador. People from the bureaucratic staff from Riyadh last year in 2018, because thankfully she's not one of my favorites, but Chrystia Freeland says, where did it go? I'm sorry. There's a quote from her in here. Oh no, maybe it's not a quote from her. Okay, I'm sorry. No, okay, here it is. So, in November 2018, Canada imposed sanctions against 17 Saudi nationals linked to the murder of dissident Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who was murdered in the kingdom's consulate in Istanbul, Turkey on October 2nd. Despite the diplomatic crisis and criticism of the deal by human rights and civil society groups in Canada, the Liberal government has refused to cancel the LAV deal with Saudi Arabia. Exactly. They're gonna refuse to cancel this deal because it'll hurt Canadian jobs and it'll hurt Canadian economy. And those 2 points I understand, but can we not sell these to, an actual ally, somebody who actually is going to use these for good? Or at least not for direct evil. I don't think it's that hard. And again, I used this in my article before. This accounts for nearly 62% of the total value of non-U.S. military exports by Canadian defense companies, according to the reports on exports of military goods. So what I want to see happen is I want to see this deal canceled. I want to see the Canadian government... Honestly, I want to see them remove General Dynamics from this country. If they're going to continue to sell arms to Saudi Arabia through the U.S. government or the Canadian government, they need to be removed from this country. We should not be standing up for this. We should not be exporting war. We should not be exporting genocide. Despite that, the argument that we would lose Canadian jobs as part of that process is unfortunate. I understand that. But listen, you guys have to... The federal government, the Liberal Party, who has a minority, is very much in line with how this is going on so far. We need to talk. We need to tell them that we are not. We do not accept this. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy this. Please leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. And until next time,